So for example, salah, if you forget to do tashahhud al-awwal, the first tashahhud in between, let's say you're praying Isha 4 rak'at, and after the second rak'at you got up and you didn't stay for tashahhud al-awwal, then your salah is still accepted. All you have to do is do what? Sujood al-sahw. Okay, the sujood of forgetfulness. But as for a pillar, then if you forget, for example, doing takbirat al-ihram, or for example, you forget to recite Fatiha, then your salah is invalid. And you have to complete the salah from scratch completely. It's not valid. Another thing to aid you guys to understand and to differentiate between a pillar and a condition is that a pillar, it happens and then you move on to the next pillar. It's not continuous. For example, if you do takbirat al-ihram, you only say it once and that's it. You move on to the next pillar. Fatiha, you only say it once and then you move on to the next pillar. Until you come back up, of course. With a condition, for example, istiqbal al-qibla. It's outside of the salah and is continuous. Does that make sense? So a condition is before the actual act of worship and is continuous. Meaning, to compare that which I've mentioned with Fatiha, istiqbal al-qibla. Whether you started praying salah and you're in the salah, and when you finish, yani all throughout the whole act of worship, you have to completely pray towards Mecca. You can't change. Okay? You don't move on to the next pillar, the next condition, that's it, you forget about that condition. Being a Muslim, you have to be a Muslim for your action to be accepted. Okay? And niyyah, making niyyah, it's throughout the whole salah, so on and so forth. So all of the conditions, they're outside of the actual act of worship, and they are continuous. Okay? So the Shaykh, he mentions here, وَالنِّيَّةَ شَرْطٌ لِكُلِّ طَهَارَةٍ. Okay? شرعية غير. Okay? So every single purification that when you're making wudu and what have you have to have the niyyah. Okay? You have to have the niyyah before you actually go to make wudu, and before you enter the toilet, you make the niyyah. Now, except غير إزالة خبث, يعني meaning if you want to remove impurifications, do you have to make a niyyah for it to be accepted? Is it an act of worship when you're removing impurities? We covered it before. No, not ghusl. For example, let's say you're taking off something that's impure. Do you have to have the intention to make it off? It's not, because it's not an act of worship. It's removing something. Whereas ghusl is different. It's different, completely different. So here, that's one thing. The other one is, he mentions here, وَغُسْلِ كِتَابِيَّةٍ لِحِلِّ وَطْئٍ. Is it permissible for a man to marry a person from Ahlul Kitab? For a woman to, a man to marry, a Muslim man to marry a woman from Ahlul Kitab? Is it permissible? It's permissible. So here the muallif, he brings in the madhab of the Hanabila, that which is not a must is that if a person, إذا شخص يريد أن يبني عليها, in English, if a person wants to have relations or intimacy with his wife that's not a Muslim but from Ahlul Kitab, then it's not a must for her to make the intention. Does that make sense? To make the intention, meaning when doing ghusl, it's not a must. But then the Shaykh, he explained it. He says, however, it is better, of course, for one, in terms of for you to, and the best example the Shaykh gave is that if, for example, she was on her period, okay, and the person, the husband, Muslim man, wants to have relations with his non-Muslim wife, then he should tell her, and it's recommended for her to do ghusl. But for her to make the intention, it's not a must. Okay, so just explain that part. وَمُسْلِمَةٍ مُمْتَنِعَةٍ. As for his wife, let's say his wife didn't want to make ghusl, then it is permissible for him to highly recommend and encourage her. Almost like ijbar, and say, no, you have to make ghusl in order for us to have relations. So this is the second, the third point. The first one is to remove impurities. Second one is one married to a person from the people of the book. And the other one, the third one, is his wife that doesn't want to have ghusl. The next part is that which is wajib for wudu, ikhwani. That which is wajib for wudu. And it's mentioned here, وَتَسْمِيَةً. Tasmiyah meaning, saying Bismillah. It is wajib in the Hanabila to say Bismillah before you actually start wudu. And it's the only wajib, only mandatory thing with regards to the wudu, with regards to wudu. So it's mentioned here, في wudu'in. So وَتَسْمِيَةً وَاجِبَةٌ فِي وُضُوءٍ. So with regards to making wudu, a person should say Bismillah. Now, of course, the ulama, they have khilaf, differences of opinion, but we're not going to get into that, whether it's a must to say it before or not, or what have you. But that which is, the the Musannif here, he says that it is wajib. It is wajib. وَتَيَمُّمْ. And also when a person wants to make tayammum, they should say Bismillah before doing tayammum. So the first point is the basmala of what? Saying Bismillah before wudu. Second one is tayammum. To say Bismillah before tayammum. The third one is وَغَسْلِ يَدْ, يعني to clean the hands from the person that wakes up. Okay? An authentic narration and in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that which is reported in, and this is reported in Bukhari, that the Prophet sallallahu says, إِذَا اسْتَيْقَظَ أَحَدُكُم مِّن نَوْمِهِ فَلَا يَغْمِسْ يَدَهُ فِي إِنَاءٍ. If a person wakes up from his sleep, then he shouldn't put his hands in any sort of basin or vessel or jug or mug, yani something that's round where there's water. What's the reason? حَتَّى يَغْسِلَهَا ثَلَاثًا, until he washes it 3 times. فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَدْرِي أَيْنَ بَاتَتْ يَدَهُ, because he doesn't know where his hand has been, yani as he was sleeping. So this here is in Muslim and also in Bukhari, is different lafz, but the same thing. So this is the proof of that when you wake up in the morning, you shouldn't just place your hand and start making wudu straight away, but rather you should wash your hand 3 times. And before it is that you say the basmala. You say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And then that which you should do as well, it's mentioned here, that وَيَجِبْ لَهُ ثَلَاثًا تَعَبُّدًا. يعني you should do it 3 times. You should wash your hands 3 times. وَمَضْمَضَةٍ فَاسْتِنْشَاقٍ. And same thing as well, the madmada and also istinshaq. So now, that's that which we're touching on now, we're talking about the sunan. So we mentioned the wajib, which is the basmala, saying Bismillah. As for the sunan, that which is sunnah. Okay, and what's the difference between that which is sunnah and that which is wajib? Exactly, that which is wajib is something that the Prophet ﷺ commanded you to do. That which is sunnah is that which he did, and it's better for you to do so. It's better for you to do so. That which is sunnah, it's mentioned here, وَمِن سُنَنِهِ إِسْتِقْبَالِ قِبْلَةٍ, to face the qibla. Okay, to face the qibla. وَسِوَاك, and to use the siwak. يعني when is it to use the siwak? يعني after you've made wudu. كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لأمرتهم لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك. If I didn't fear for my ummah, my nation, then I would have ordered them to use the siwak بعد كل وضوء وعند الصلاة. يعني each time after they make wudu and also before the salah. أو كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So this is for the proof that you should use the siwak if you're able, because it's from the sunnah. And also to start washing your hands as well. يعني from the moment you're making wudu, what's the first thing that you do when you're making wudu, ikhwani? After you said the basmala, what's the first action? You wash your hands how many times? 3 times. And this is from the sunnah as well, to do it 3 times. And then it says here, وَيَجِبْ لَهُ ثَلَاثًا تعبدا, 3 times. Okay? مضمضة والاستنشاق and mubalagha. And mubalagha meaning to make sure you do it properly. Okay? And the way the Prophet ﷺ did, you see many times people making wudu and they just rush it. And we'll, inshallah, when we get into the sifat, the description of the wudu, we'll do it inshallah physically. You see many times people when they make wudu, they just rush, they just literally just rushing, just for the sake of them completing wudu. La, it's an act of worship. When you're doing wudu, know that the Prophet ﷺ told the person to go back and what? Just literally, it was, as we mentioned last lesson, it was the size of a penny or a pound that he missed. But that wudu is what? Invalid and not accepted. And la salata bidun tahara. If you haven't made wudu properly, then your salah is invalid. Your salah is invalid. And then it's mentioned here, وَتَخْلِيلُ شَعْرٍ كَثِيفٍ. يعني it's from the sunnah as well, to make takhleel sha'r. يعني if you've got hair, to put your hands through it as you're doing it. And even in terms of, يعني we mentioned the asabi' as well here. The musannif, he brings the asabi', meaning يعني the fingers, to make sure that you're washing in between. Okay? ثانية وثالثة. يعني that which is wajib in terms of wudu is that you wash it once. Each limb you wash it once. That's wajib. The sunnah is to do it twice. You wash your hands twice or 3 times. وَكُرِهَ أَكْثَرُ. And in the Hanabila, okay, in the school of thought of the Hanabila, it is disliked for you to do more than 3. Because the Prophet ﷺ didn't do more than 3, but rather he did just 3. Okay? There was times in narrations where he mentions that the Prophet ﷺ used to do it once, twice, and 3 times. So from the sunnah, that which we know that anything that the Prophet ﷺ did, one specific act of worship, he did it different ways, then it's from the sunnah to try and do it also in these different ways. For example, when it comes to the dua al-istiftah, the dua, the supplication that you make when you are beginning salah. The Prophet ﷺ used to recite different types of supplications. So it's from the sunnah, at some points you recite this dua, and other points this dua, and other points this dua. Same as wudu, it's from the sunnah for you to mix it up. At points you do it once, you do it twice, or you do it 3 times. But of course, that which is best and better is that you do it 3 times. And you don't do more than 3 times. And then it's mentioned here, وَسَنَّ بَعْدَ فِرَاغِهِ, that it's from the sunnah after you finish making wudu, رَفْعُ بَصَرِهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. عند الحنابلة, from the sunnah is that you look up. Who can tell me what's the hikmah? What's the wisdom that they brought that? No, for them is you look up. رَفْعُ بَصَرِهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. Barakallahu fiik. Exactly what you said. The hikmah for them is like you're thanking Allah Azza wa Jalla for giving you the capability to do so and to make wudu, and that you're a Muslim and that you look up, meaning as a sign of gratitude and thanks. That's the hikmah that they brought regarding looking up into the sky. And what do you say? What's that which you say when you finish? Who knows the dua that you say when you finish making wudu? What's the dua that you say? Okay, it's more than that. It's a bit more than that, huh? Barakallahu fiqh. Exactly what the brothers say. Say it loud again so the brothers can hear you. So this dua is from the sunnah to say when it's not wajib, but it's from the sunnah. And of course we know that which is sunnah is better for us. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. So this dua, it's like you're thanking Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay, within it is tawheed, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Within it you're sending salutations to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And within it you're making dua, Allahumma ja'alni min at-tawwabin. Oh Allah, make me from those that are from the repenters, those that repent to you. وَجَعَلْنِي مِنَ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ, and make you from those that are pure. So that in itself is a beautiful, great dua. And that's something that we should try our utmost best to memorize, make that dua, and also teach our loved ones and our family members. Okay, the next part. الفصل يجوز المسح على الخف. Okay, it is permissible for you to wipe over. What's khuf in English? Is it any socks? It's socks, socks, but any other socks? Leather socks as well. Okay? Anything that covers your feet, okay, or not shoes obviously, but anything that covers your feet from that material, something that covers your feet is called khaf, meaning in the Arabic language, like leather socks, like the brothers mentioned, normal socks, okay? We won't get into the intricacies of it, whether it has holes and what have you, because that's a complete other topic. But as a point of benefit, we know that some of the companions, some of the narrations, it mentions that when it comes to them wiping over their socks, some of them used to have holes in their socks, okay? And it wouldn't stop them, and the Prophet ﷺ did not stop them from doing al-mash al-khuffayn, okay? And in the authentic narration, it's mentioned, وعن صفوان ibn Assal, قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يأمرنا إذا كنا سفرا. The Prophet ﷺ used to instruct us and command us when we were traveling, أن لا ننزع خفافنا, to not take off our socks, ثلاثة أيام, for 3 days. So the longest period that you can wipe over the socks when you're traveling, that specific sock when you're traveling, is 3 days. Okay, the longest time frame with regards to you being allowed to wipe over the socks is 3 days when you're traveling. Yes. No, it doesn't matter. Material-wise, as long as, like I said, as long as it covers, okay, then you can wipe over it. In terms of it being leather or normal cotton, it doesn't matter. Same thing, you can wipe over it. But in terms of the mudda, the period, is that it splits into 2 categories. A person that's traveling and a person that's not traveling. Okay? As for a person traveling, then the first thing is that the longest period is 3 days. And what's the shortest period? So it's mentioned here in this hadith, ثلاثة أيام ولياليهن, okay? And 3 days and nights, meaning so 3 days. Except for example if they had a wet dream. Of course then they have to have ghusl. إلا من جنابة, as mentioned here in hadith. ولكن من غائط وبول ونوم. Okay? So if a person, for example, is traveling, the longest period is 3 days. If a person is not traveling, what's the longest period they wipe over their socks? 24 hours. Okay, now there's conditions to it. From the conditions, ikhwani, of wiping over your socks, what are the conditions? Yeah. So you have to have wudu before you put on the socks. Giving you all examples, scenario. I've prayed Salatul Maghrib just now. I've got my wudu. Okay? I'm not wearing socks. I'm at home, for example. Or I'm in the masjid. I've made wudu. I've prayed Salatul Maghrib. Then I decided, okay, I finished Salatul Maghrib. Let me put my socks on. As soon as I put my socks on, from that moment, I've got 24 hours that I can wipe over that socks. Or those pairs of socks. Meaning, I'm not traveling. I'm just a resident in my hometown. Now, if I lose my wudu, so that's the first thing, okay? You have to enter it upon tahara. Okay, I'll give you all a question now. If, for example, I've prayed Salatul Maghrib, I've got wudu, I've put my socks on, I finished putting my socks on, Salatul Isha is about to come in, I've lost my wudu, I've taken my socks off. And then I remembered, oh yeah, can I put my socks back on and wipe over them? So we've understood that. The condition is that you have to enter. And you have to put those pairs of socks on when you've got wudu. Okay, now if, for example, you have lost your wudu and you entered, you put those socks on in a state of purity and you've lost your wudu, can you wipe them again? You were pure, you made wudu, you were pure, you wore your socks are still on, and then you lost your wudu. For the next salah or before the next salah comes in, can you wipe over those socks? So that's the condition, and that's it. In terms of the conditions, is that number one, you have to enter it in a state of purity. Number two, for a traveler, 3 nights, 3 days. As for the one that's resident, only 24 hours. 24 hours. Where do you wipe over the socks? What's your name, brother? Rahman, where do you wipe over your socks? Okay, why is it many people think that they should wipe it on top and at the bottom? Huh? Yeah. On top, but how about wiping at the bottom? If I want to wipe at the bottom as well, is it okay? I'm asking you, what's your name? Yasser, why is it okay or is it not okay? Why is it not okay, Yasser? Barakallahu feekum. Who can tell me that which aids what he just said? The statement, huh? Barakallahu feekum, Habibi. Exactly what the brother said. The qawl of Ali ibn Abi Talib, which is a qaida, a principle for all of us in terms of our religion. The religion is not about ara. Okay, it's not about my opinion, your opinion, his opinion, her opinion. It's not about that. Alhamdulillah, ad-din, al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum, wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati, wa raditu lakum al-islam deen. Our deen has been completed. If there was anything that was missing, then the Prophet ﷺ would have informed us and Allah Azza wa Jalla would have informed him. The deen is complete. It's not for me or for you or your logic or what you think and your opinion, la. And the statement of Ali ibn Abi Talib mentions لولا الدين بالآراء. If the religion لولا كان الدين بالآراء, if the religion was built upon opinions, لمسحنا, we would have wiped underneath our socks. At the bottom part. It's not about that. The deen is about قال الله قال الرسول على فقه على وفق فهم السلف الصالح, upon the understanding of the companions in those 3 generations. خير الناس قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم. These are the best generations. And those are the ones that Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions, رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه. Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah Azza wa Jalla. So that's regarding مسح على الخفين, in terms of the condition. Now, it's mentioned here that that's the first thing. In terms of, we've told you the proof, we've mentioned the proof, we mentioned how many nights, and when you're traveling, so people shouldn't get confused, inshallah. It's clear. 3 nights, 3 nights. But you have to enter it in a state of wudu. Okay? You have to enter it in a state of wudu. And also, of course, we know without a shadow of a doubt, when you are praying on something, ikhwani, even if it's, for example, you've got your socks on and you're praying with something, a hadith for you guys to understand, is that you have to make sure that what you're praying on and what you're using as garments, whether it's socks and what have you, there's no impurities. So even if you've made wudu and you're praying salah, make sure you see it, that the place you're praying in, there's no najasa and what have you. That's something that you should make sure that you see to it, that there's nothing of the sort. Okay, nothing of the sort. Okay, question, off topic but related. Yes. I can't hear you. لا, this doesn't matter. Anything, it says here, كل شيء يستر على القدم. يعني anything that covers up until your ankles is considered the socks. Doesn't matter. The main thing is that you've replaced the whole essence of it. Ad-din yusr is to make it easy. The religion is easy, so that instead of you taking off the socks and then wipe and washing your feet thoroughly 3 times, you wipe over the socks once and that's it. It replaces it. SubhanAllah, astaghfirullah. A question, yeah, barakallahu fikum. Let's say, for example, and this is the hadith عن مغيرة بن شعبة رضي الله عنه قال كنت مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. مغيرة بن شعبة, he was with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he says يعني في سفر, on a journey, فأهويت لأنزع خفيه. So I try my best to take off the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم's يعني socks. He tried to take off the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم's socks. And then what did the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم say to him? He says دعهما فإني أدخلتهما طاهرتين. يعني leave them, for verily I've entered, يعني I wore them upon purity. فَمَسَحَ عَلَيْهِمَا مُتَّفَقٌ عَلَيْهِ. This hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim. And then the Prophet ﷺ wiped يعني on the top part of the socks. So a question to you is all, and there's another authentic narration regarding that which I'm mentioning now, is if, for example, a person is walking and then they step on an impurity. For example, bowl, akramakumullah, and they step on their feet, meaning their trainers. And then they are outside in the jungle, for example, or they're in the park. Are they allowed to pray? And they carry on walking on sand, and then they get to the place where they want to pray. Are they allowed to pray? Why? Barakallahu fikum. A lot of people don't realize this. Some of them think they have to take their shoes off because now it's impure and what have you. Another authentic narration, when the Prophet ﷺ was praying, or was about to pray, this incident occurred. Meaning, this here, what the question asked, the brother said, the whole earth is pure. If you stepped on something impure, we're not saying ghaid, we're not saying pure and what have you, but rather something minor, like urine. For example, you stepped on it by accident and you didn't realize, and then you carried on walking, you went over sand, over soil, over grass. It's not a necessity for you to take off your shoes because of the fact that earlier on you stepped on it. Why? Because it was cleansed with the soil and the turab and the sand and what have you. Okay, the deen is easy, ikhwan. Deen yusr. The next part, so that's the first one, al-khuf. The other one is imama. Okay, what's imama? Does anyone have an imama here with them? Qaddar Allah, no one has. I would have demonstrated to you exactly what's about to be mentioned. But the imama that we wear today, for example, is not the same as that which the Prophet ﷺ used to wear. So it's mentioned here that it's okay, وَعِمَامَةِ ذَكَرٍ. The muallif here, he mentions وَعِمَامَةِ ذَكَرٍ, يعني the imama that the men wear. It's allowed for them to wipe over them. Okay, but how and why? He mentions here, the condition is it has to be muhannakatin. Muhannaka is that have you ever seen the Sudanese turbans? Has anyone here ever seen the Sudanese turbans? The way they wear their turban, or those in Mauritania, those in the deserts. Usually the people of the Jibal, Sahara, those that are in the desert, they're the ones that wear it. Where it's literally an amama wrapped around, and the muhannaka means it goes underneath their necks. So it's not a hijab, but it goes around, and it's twisted around like that, and it goes round all the way. And then it has like a little, some of them, it has like a little tail almost, yeah. Because they wrap it up, it's long, the cloth is long, they wrap it around, and then it's like a little tail at the end. This is that which is allowed. Okay, that's the first condition. The second one is dhu'abatin. It looks like a headgear. You know when you go to war and you wear like the helmet, it's almost the same, but it's wrapped around like a imama. These are the two conditions that you're allowed to wipe over them. What's the reason? What's the hikmah of the permissibility of being able to wipe over the imamah? Not just wool. Huh? Not that it's like socks, because of the fact that it will be difficult to take off this whole thing and unwrap it and then do it again. So that's the reason why it was permissible. From the Prophet ﷺ's time, they used to do this. One of them, of course, when they're going to war, but that wasn't the only condition when they're traveling, when they're going out. Because of the fact to take it all off, it's difficult. So the deen came to make it easy. So therefore it was made easy and it's permissible for you to wipe over it. Not like, for example, if you got a kufi, you take it off and you put it back on again. There's no difficulty in me taking off my hat, wiping over my head, my hair, and then putting my hat back on. As for the imamah, it takes time and it's long. Okay? So that's the next one. وَخُمْرِ نِسَاءٍ مُدَارَةٍ تَحْتَ حُلُوقِهِنْ. The next one is the hijab of, and khumrin is the jam' is the plural version of khimar. The khimar of a woman, that which is wrapped around her, hijab fully wrapped around her. It's also permissible for her to do masih as well. I don't think there's enough. Okay, we still have a couple of minutes. So that's the next one. Does anyone have the English version? Yeah, what does it say? For the women folk. وَخُمْرِ نِسَاء, and the hijab of the woman. Carry on. It's permissible. So here the first one is what? Is the socks. Second one is the imamah. Okay, the imamah. The third one is the khimar of the woman. For example, same thing, if it's difficult for her and she's in a place where she can't remove it, then she can wipe. And some of the ulama, they say she wipes she removes it a little bit and wipes the top part of her hair, and then she carries on. And then she carries on over on top of the hijab, that is. On top of the hijab. That's the fourth one, right? The fifth one is وَعَلَى جَبِيرَةٍ لَمْ تُجَاوِزْ قَدْرَ الْحَاجَةِ. It's permissible if a person, for example, has a cast, okay? Or, for example, a person has a plaster, then it's permissible to wipe over that part depending where it is on your limb. Where you make wudu, okay? Where you make wudu, and inshallah we will stop for the adhan, ikhwani. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala rasulillah. Just to conclude, so the next part is, a person has a plaster or a cast, then it's permissible to wipe over it. For example, let's say you fractured your hand, you broke it, and you have a cast. It's permissible for you to wipe over it, but it's mentioned here that لَمْ تُجَاوِزْ قَدْرَ الْحَاجَةِ, to make sure that you're not doing it even though you don't need to do it. For example, let's say you just have a bandage, okay, and you can take it off and you don't have a cast. Then in that case, it's permissible and it's better for you to make wudu properly. However, if it's something that you need to leave on and you can't take off, then it's permissible for you to wipe over the cast, whether it will be in your leg, on your finger, on your arm, any part of the limbs in that which you need to make wudu. Okay? إِلَى حِلِّهَا, إِلَى حِلِّهَا, meaning until the time comes when you have to remove it. For example, if the time comes and you have to remove it, you don't take advantage and carry on making wiping over it when you can actually make wudu properly. And then it's mentioned here that if, for example, if it's a must for you and it's going to cause harm for you to actually put water over it, then you can do tayammum on this specific part of where the cast is. And with that note, inshallah, we'll conclude. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله عليه وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.